Welcome back to Poomsae with Master AJ. On today's video, we're going to discuss the differences between the 3-judge, the 5-judge, and the 7-judge format. This is probably one of those underlooked things to consider whenever you're competing on how it's going to play out in your score when you have 3 judges or 5 judges or 7 judges. So we're really going to take a dive and see why this matters and then how you can better learn from that as well. So we are going to be looking at my Summer of Poomsae scores from earlier this year. And if you look, we're only shown 3 judges. So we see R, J1, and J2. For a world-class event, you typically see 5 judges or 7 judges, 5 being the common one. But for this particular one, USA Taekwondo decided to use 3. So we see that 3.2, 3.4, and 4.4 are actually pretty close in margin. There's not a whole lot of variance for accuracy, and that is really good. And then the same thing goes for presentation. So my score, if we go by J2, they think I deserved a 7.8. If we look at the total score, I got a 7.7. J1 believed that I should have gotten a 7.9. If we look at the total score, again a 7.7. And R thought I should have done a 7.4, which kind of dropped me down. It's a little bit lower than 7.7, but you can see that the lowest score was a 7.4 and the highest was a 7.9. That's within half a point. So that's actually really good in terms of variability. So that's what we're really looking at, is how much do the scores vary between the 3 judges. If, let's say, R just totally did not like my form and they gave me a 2.5 for accuracy and a 3.8 for presentation, that's going to really mess up the average, because J1 and J2 said, no, that was a 7.8 or a 7.9, but then we have R that thinks it's a lot lower than that. So what that's going to do is drive the average way down. The same thing could happen if we just use only one of those scores. So let's say, well, she presented well, but she kind of made a lot of mistakes. So we're going to give her a 2.5 accuracy and a 4.2 presentation. Again, that's going to drive the score down. Same thing if the reverse happens. Let's say R really loved me and they gave me a 3.6, which is still really close to J1 and J2, and maybe a 4.9, which again is still really close to J1 and J2. But those type of things can affect your overall score when you only have 3 judges present, because the high and the low does not get dropped. So they're averaged between those 3. Okay, now we're going to take a look at a score sheet back from earlier this year, back in June, from the NCTA, and we've seen the score sheet before on my channel. But if we notice, and I picked this one in specific because you can see how close my scores are across each form. They're identical. The averages are identical on both accuracy and presentation. So I thought it would be a really good one to choose from. So we see in Poomsae number 1 that R was probably my low score, and then J1 and J2 were my high scores, and so those were also dropped. But if we look at the spread across the forms, they're pretty even. So for example, J1 gave me a 7.9 and J2 also gave me a 7.9. That's still pretty close to 7.67. R decided that I was a 7.6, and then the rest of them also thought I was a 7.6. So that's pretty close. 7.9 and 7.6 is only 0.3 difference. So we can see how that really makes sure that the middle group, that the very center is what's averaged out. And that's what we want to see. Same thing over in Poomsae number 2. We have almost the exact same scores. Okay, so now we're looking at the 7-judge format. This was from my 2014 World Poomsae Championships. It's one of the only pictures that I have of a score sheet of a 7-judge format, so we are going to use freestyle for this particular one. So on the left column, that is the technical score, and remember that's out of 6 points, so that is why it's very high. And on the right, we have the presentation score, which is out of 4 points, and that's why it's a lot lower. So the white numbers are the ones that were taken out, and then the yellow numbers are the ones that were used to average. So freestyle is still very new, so without getting too much off topic, understand that some of the education and the consistency in scoring isn't quite there yet, especially back in 2014 when freestyle had only been around for about 3 years at that point, so it's still new. Judge 4 gave me a 4.1 and Judge 6 gave me a 5.3. So that's a pretty massive spread. But if we look at the other 5 judges, they stayed within the 4.5 range. And that's what we're going to look at. So again, that massive spread was taken out because the high and low was dropped on 7 judges, which we typically only see at a world level event. And if we look at the presentation, the spread is a lot smaller. It's 2.6 to 3.4. If we look at the presentation, we see that the spread is a little bit smaller, a 2.6 to a 3.4. So we're going to drop that high and low, and now we have a still somewhat big spread, but it's not as bad. So that 7-judge system really makes sure that it's all evened out, that every score is going to matter. Now again, at the world level, typically in recognized, you don't see that big of a spread because all of the judges are very, very well trained at a world championship level event in recognized Poomsae. Like I said, freestyle is still very new, and that's causing a little bit of difficulty in scoring. I know when I look at scores, I sometimes get confused at what I'm seeing. And when I look at routines, sometimes I'm trying to figure out, well, how would I actually score that? So I can only imagine what referees are going through when they only get to see it once and they have to watch for a lot of things all in one go. Okay, so I hope this video helped you understand the differences between the 3-judge, the 5-judge, and the 7-judge format. Basically, with the 3-judge is that the high and low doesn't get dropped because that would only leave one judge's score, and that the consistency may not be there because typically the 3-judge format is utilized for color belts, and the 5 and 7-judge format are utilized for more world-class, higher-level events. And those are the ones where the highs and lows should get dropped to make sure that the average is very fair to give a nice, consistent score that doesn't have too many variances. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!